Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today to discuss Killer Be Killed Volume 4 and the entire run, I guess you could say. So we'll go around the room. Chris, will you kick us off, please, sir?
Sir? That's the one thing you're not allowed to call me at work either. So my name is Chris Mohan. I run a YouTube channel that talks about movies, books, whatever comes into my head. And first time reading Killer Be Killed, and now finished Killer Be Killed.
Yeah.
Dum dum dum.
Yeah. And Jose?
Hi, I'm Jose. I also run a YouTube channel called Jose's Amazing Worlds, and for me, this was a reread of Killer Be Killed.
Yes. And Jarrod?
I'm Jarrod. I run the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and this was also a reread from the original issues when they first came out. So lots of stuff to be remembered that I didn't remember before. So it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I had read the first volume way back when. I just never finished it, but I hate to start it off with, because the first couple of pages it had me wondering this, and I hate to start off with something, it's a little bit off topic, but in the first page our character talks about the thing about the world is it just doesn't give us enough time. Most of us aren't rich, so our days are spent doing the things we don't want to, working, paying bills, working, making just enough to keep running on the hamster wheel. No time to think about anything except how you're going to keep surviving. Maybe wonder, when do we get to a point to where we are concerned about having enough, that we have the luxury of not worrying about how we're going to survive, just from just food and shelter kind of thing, to where we're so unhappy in like modern days when we have all these luxuries. We're so unhappy. What is that? That, like, someone like our main character, where he's so miserable with his life and just everything in general, that he's willing to do all these things. When did we get to that point where it just isn't enough that we're alive?
That's a great question, Steve.
I'll give you my attempt at answering the question, because it's something I have to remind myself as well. Like, sometimes we get too bogged down on, I don't hate my job, I don't think I love it, but I don't hate it either. And there's an exercise there every so often of reminding myself of the things that are going well in my life. And I think it's that, I'm butchering the quote here, that tough times make tough men make easy times make soft men. And I think I personally, I haven't really struggled through my life. My parents provided me and my sister with a certain level of stability and luxury. We're by no means rich, but we've never been wanting for anything. So it's that sort of human nature of always wanting more and never really taking the time to think about what is it that is going well for you, that is good. I'm not saying be content, but appreciate what you have. And I think there may be an element of that here, that our main character, he's just seemingly doesn't have to struggle with anything. So we create new struggles for ourselves because we don't know real struggle.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've had a couple of times in my life when I thought the world was falling apart on me. That kind of thing, like you can't swim or you can't paddle fast enough, and you have to do those exercises and you say, well, what is really wrong here, or what's the worst case scenario? And often when you break it down, the worst case scenario is never as bad as you think, and similarly when things are going well, it's never going as well as you think. It's one of those things. I think we get caught in a cycle of worrying about stuff and wanting stuff and all that stuff that we don't really need or want. I think that's very hard to do. I'm the world's worst at it. Like, if there's a poster boy for that person, it is me. Absolutely. You can look at the shelves behind me, you can look at the shelves in the next room, you can look at bank balance, whatever it is you want to look at, it is. But at the heart of it, you do have to remind yourself, and these moments don't happen that often in life, when you go, shit, none of that matters. None of that matters at all. And I sometimes forget that, in work. Like, as much as I really enjoy my work, there are days that piss me off. But for me, if I love my work, it doesn't mean everybody else has to love their work either. It doesn't have to be a thing. Some people can just be like, I'm turning up at 9, half 9, and I'm leaving at 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever time it is, and that's me done with this portion of my life. And some people may go home and think about it all night, and some people may not. And both those things are acceptable and fine.
Yeah, as far as it pertains to our character here, he has some means and ambition in a way of doing the things that he accomplished as far as wanting to be a vigilante. And, you wonder if he could have put that energy towards something, a life productive rather than what he did, what he could have done. And so that kind of, I like Chris said, I've been through my fair share of ups and downs, and it's kind of relative to your situation, and you have to take that step back and realize what you really have and what's important to you in your life. And Dylan, as far as his character goes, doesn't seem to have quite that ability. He comes to a few realizations here and there towards the end, but he it's a little too late, I think.
I think at the core of it, though, and this comes out shining through this last volume whatsoever, Dylan is a narcissist, like a pretty massive narcissist. The only times he's really happy is when his ego is being, he has this sense of empowerment, the bit where he's run about saving the world. That's literally the only time. Not in his relationship with Kira, which could be healthy. Do you know what I mean? She did care about him, does care about him. He's actually a good relationship with his mother. Those people care about him. He was in school, he was making progress, but he eschews all of that because it's not fulfilling the male fantasy. Which is the power, the kind of the overall alpha male, whatever it is that he thinks that he wants to be. He's lived his life not being that person, and I think through acting out these murders, etc., he gets a sense of, I could be that person, and it doesn't happen often enough for him.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that may even come out later in the story. Well, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but when he confesses to the detective, he could have just kept quiet. He could have just not said anything and just said, I want a lawyer. And that would have ended. That would have been it. So you almost wonder if he does want that recognition. He does want the credit. He does want to stroke his ego, knowing that he's going to admit to these murders. And he'll probably be put away forever. It's almost like that was more important than just getting away with it.
Actually, no. He knew he couldn't be put away forever because the case was closed. They pinned all the murders on someone else that got killed. So he was going to get away scot-free, no matter what. So there was no risk for him in confessing what he was doing.
He suspected that, but the first stage where he confessed to the doctor, he didn't know that the guy wasn't. He didn't even know about the copycat at that stage. Mm-hmm. But yes, there was all right. He was smart and clever enough to know an awful lot, but ultimately, his life wasn't fulfilling enough. It wasn't exciting enough for him. Wasn't doing for him what he wanted.
Yeah, the confession had a little, in both cases, had an element of risk. Because even though the case was closed, he doesn't know that she's not still going to pursue it to some point, and he doesn't know how much pressure she was getting, or she might have gotten, to shut it down or what have you. So there is some, even though he knows that, there is a little bit element of risk there. But I think that's probably more exciting to him than anything else.
Yeah, I think, and he could have said I was heavily medicated, I didn't know what I was saying. He could have,
Yeah.
There would have been outs, but still, he wanted someone to know. Yeah. But, yeah, so anyway, he wakes up in the, I really enjoyed the jumping back and forth. We start off in the mental hospital, or the hospital he's in, and we don't really know how he gets there. We always start. Let me go back and explain how we get here. So, yeah, the whole thing about how he ended up in there, how he attacks his roommate. Was that enough to get locked up like that? I don't know. And Kira taking a lamp to his head. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a bit. I don't know.
Are you trying to say that when it comes to their relationship not working out, and somebody says, "Were there any signs, any whatsoever, where you thought maybe she wasn't the one for me?" And you're like, "No. Well, actually, she did smash me over the back of the head with a lamp once. That was plugged in."
Yeah. I was acting a little like a psycho killer, but hey,
I mean, she's my girlfriend,
Yeah, I guess it all depends on how much you pictured he was actually going to kill his roommate, and how much she thought it would have taken to stop him. I guess maybe just dragging him off wouldn't have been enough. I don't know.
Isn't bringing her around kind of a provocation though? I mean, just out of courtesy, like, would you bring her around all the time? And I mean, knowing that he's, I don't know, isn't that kind of against the code to bring an ex around like that when you're dating someone that their roommate used to date and it's so fresh and you're kind of like flaunting it in his face? Isn't that kind of, I don't know, I don't know. I don't know.
There seems to be a lot of codes I've never read. No one told me, so I never go invited to any of these meetings where these decisions get made. It happens at work as well, like, you can't say that, like, who decided anyway.
Yeah. But didn't he bring that up in the previous volume?
Yeah, he actually asked him not to bring her around.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he said, "Well, who are you to tell me what to do?"
Right, that's
he
right.
did it anyway.
So just to bring it back to your point about him being narcissistic, like, I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know, because he attempts 3 times to own up to what he's doing. First to Kira, but that fails. Then there's a second attempt to the doctor where he actually confesses, but no one believes him. And then finally, when he confesses to the policewoman, there is an acceptance and a recognition and a belief there. So I don't know, in those 3 different instances, I don't know, is he looking for validation? Is he looking for someone to say, "Oh, how cool you are"? Or is it just him trying to get her out of his mind and offload? I don't know. And is it significant? It's a 3rd time lucky that these 2 failed attempts. Like, he's getting closer to getting what he wants.
Yeah, it's almost like he wanted to unburden himself, or at least try and get rid of the demon, because the demon has come back and is tormenting him again. And I think last week you made a great point, Jose, about the demon. How much that adds to the story? If the demon wasn't there, how much would the story have changed? And I thought a lot about that when I was reading this 4th volume about your point last week, and I thought, I don't know. I don't know how much it really added, other than the last scene. But did we really need? Because everything else with the demon and the brother, we didn't really get a whole lot of the brother. It kind of feels like kind of touched on a little bit, but I guess it kind of makes sense at the very end. But I don't know. Did we really need that part of it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I feel like it's one of those left up to the viewer or left up to the reader type of deals of how much is needed. But I did get a sense that when he is really drugged, in the hospital, and he can like barely speak, and he felt that the demon abandoned him at that point. And I'm wondering, and that kind of like made me think of like he had issues with maybe his father abandoning him, when he was young, and is he relating the demon to his issues of abandonment? And when the demon was with him, did he feel more in charge? Even though he was scared, the very first volumes, he was scared that the demon was, threatening him to kill people. But at some point, did he come to accept it? And then did he feel abandoned when the drugs basically made the demon go away? And did that relate to his abandonment of his father killing himself?
I'm gonna jump right to the last panel of the story because Steve mentioned it, but I think it just made me think that the demon is not a demon. It's not meant to be a manifestation of anything supernatural. It's just some kind of metaphor for a state of mind. And in that closing panel, I think what it is that we maybe see Kira going down the same road, because they say, this is going to sound so wrong, when women change their hairstyle it's because there's something radically wrong in their lives or whatever. And she's had a major hairstyle change. She's dyed her hair blue, and obviously we've got what's happened at the end. So maybe is that the event that tips her over to go down some kind of dark path?
So if you see a woman walking down the road in blue hair, you're going to tap her on the shoulder and go, "Hey, I know."
Chris, I live with a woman with red hair, as in dyed braided red hair. So I think
mal experience.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
It is. Yeah. Well, I sort of felt like he didn't know what to do with the demon at the end of it, in terms of writing it. And kind of, I felt like the last panel was almost like I gotta address the demon sometimes, so I'll make it sort of ambiguous and put it in the last panel and people can think what they like about it. But there was that moment where, there was one moment in the entire story where you think there's something more to the demon, and that's the fact that he spots the roommate knows the roommate's outside the door, because Dylan didn't know that, and Kira didn't know that, and that was the moment I was like, oh, this is really interesting, because here is something, a manifestation or something practical that says actually there's something about this demon. But we literally didn't see that demon then again nearly for another 3 issues at that stage, and it was like, oh, that felt a bit wasted.
Because I thought that last panel is a cheap shot. It's so cliched. It's like the monster in a horror movie appearing in the last second, Carrie's hand coming out of
exactly right.
of the grave. So that's why because that seems so cheap to me. That's why I choose to believe that the demon is just a metaphor for mental health or something else. I don't know, but it just is not a demon as such. It cannot be.
Well,
it just feels.
Yeah, for everybody's inner demons.
Yeah, thank you. That's a way to put it.
Yeah.
And if we're starting to question the purpose of the demon, I guess since we're talking about the last panel, did we really need Kira?
Well, I
don't know.
Well, because we can talk about the last panel, we can talk about the last whole issue, because the actual story ends in the penultimate issue. That last issue seems to be like a fake ending. Like, we end the story, we're going to give you like an alternative ending, and you sort of choose which one you got, because the whole last issue doesn't actually happen.
Yep.
It's all in the mind of I don't know who.
I would have been livid if I was banned that issue at a time.
Sorry, say that again?
I would have been livid if I was banned that an issue at a time. They give you the ending in issue 19, and then in 20 they tack on something like, and the worst part about it is I don't even know which version of the ending I really like, because I sort of don't like either of them that much. I mean, they're both fine, they're okay. Maybe that he dies, yes, I sort of did, but the way he died a hero like that, that's a bit
that last issue has got the whole, like he becomes a hero effectively, and the policewoman, who is the law-abiding, morally correct person here, breaks bad because she sort of casually, on the sly, gives him the details of where the witness in the protection program is, so he can go and kill him. So it's that whole reversal of the personalities in that fake last issue that doesn't actually happen.
It seemed really out of character, even for like an alternate reality kind of thing. It seemed everything's. Well, I guess it's supposed to be kind of everything that wouldn't have happened, I guess. But yeah, I wasn't crazy about that whole sequence. Kind of a mess.
I don't really know what added to the story, if you know what I mean. Like, is it saying that if he had lived, that's what would have happened? Because again, that idea that she broke that bad and that she didn't care about his ending just doesn't fit with that character. But maybe he didn't know her well enough, and that's kind of is the point. When he goes to conjecture, or if he's looking at it going, he kind of thinks, oh, I could have been a hero, I could have done this differently, I could have, been working for the police nearly as this vigilante. I mean, he still has very little awareness of himself as a person, I think, as it should have struck him at some stage along the story that he could have got rid of these people and dealt with these people in a way that wasn't run about with a shotgun.
That's a good point.
If he was smart enough, if he was clever enough,
Chris, that it is from it's him telling the story, and so her breaking bad and giving them all that information in the fake ending, I guess, is just maybe his wishful thinking.
Yeah.
There is, when you look at like the issue before, at 19. There was kind of a reversal of roles between those two when they first met, and she's sitting him down and questioning him. She's the cop, she's in charge, she's doing the questioning, and she's not there to arrest him or anything like that. But at first he doesn't know that, but he figures it out eventually, and she tells him that eventually, but then when stuff goes down in the place, there's a reversal of roles there, because he's the one. He's like, have you ever killed somebody? I'll take the gun. I have. So now he's in charge, and he's the one who's calling the shots. And so maybe that played into his version of the other endings in the last issue, And I like how they I love how Phillips put the signs on the walls that kind of represented the people that they were behind. Like Thrive or Survive was behind the cop, and then you had You Are More Than Your Mental Illness behind Dylan, and I love how they did those placements in there, and those kind of got a little reversed towards the end as well. And I love how Phillips played with those visuals in those scenes, and I think that ties into the reversal of their roles in the final, penultimate issue of this series.
That's a very shrewd observation, and I would like to know whether that was on the original script or that was Phillips's sort of free reign when drawing those panels.
Yeah, I don't know. They who knows? They work so well together that you don't know who comes up with what as far as that stuff goes.
That's right.
I didn't even notice that until you mentioned it.
I noticed them. I just didn't notice the sort of
the connection. I did the same.
Swap,
I thought
around.
That's peculiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote a note when I read issue number 20, like, what the bleep did I just read? so I'm just looking through my notes now, and yeah, you guys are right. It's like he's breaking all the rules of narrative, basically, with that last issue.
Because who's Dylan talking to?
Does it work? I'm still not sure if it works. You know, because
I'm still not sure what it achieves. I still don't know what it was trying to do, really, other than here we've got another issue to fill here. I wonder, we can't have a 19-issue run. We need a 20-issue run, and the story's told. I think there's a lot of things he could have done, but I don't know what it achieves.
I don't know. I think I may be able to answer that question, but then we need to, or you need to, or I need to figure out whether the book is a story about Dylan and his mental health, or is it about society told through the eyes? Because there's a lot of social commentary throughout the book.
Yeah.
And what that last issue does is that there's a bit of redemption for Dylan in the way he sees the world. Because at one point, you know, where he says, better alive than not there at all. And he spent the whole 19 issues seeing the world as this messed up, you know, place and so on. But then he sees a bit of hope. He sees a bit of how things could be better if he was more in the moment or around. And it's, like I said, is the story about Dylan, or is it talking about society? And then just to get you to think about that, maybe.
In the whole story, he does like revisionist history of everything that's happened. You know, he does something and then he tries to explain away his actions after the fact. You know, he has this idea of, I'm going to only take out bad guys, and that stuff happens at the end. There's a lot of times where he just kind of goes, well, obviously you knew and I didn't know that the demon wasn't needed. You know, that whole section of the book where he's like, oh, the demon's irrelevant because this was always in me. I was like, yeah, that's sort of revisionist history, you know, for the reasons why you've killed so many people, why you've kind of transformed into this kind of this not geeky kind of hiding in the corner guy, that you're kind of standing up and kind of taking affirmative action to deal with things. It's all after the fact, and very little of it is planned out to the point of, like, he can plan actions, but he's not planning justification ahead of time. You know, he's kind of doing that after the fact.
I was kind of hoping that the last half of issue 19 and issue 20 was like just Dylan imagining it because he was medicated out of his mind in the hospital. I was hoping that would be the explanation. He would just remain there and maybe one day get, I don't know. Kind of a little disappointing.
But to Jarrod's great point, because, yeah, like, Brubaker breaks all narrative conventions, so I think Chris mentioned it. Like, but... And he tells us that, but does it work or does it not really work? Because I can see the faces around.
That is the question. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I know what the consensus is, but go on, guys.
You know, he's not the first person to try to break narrative conventions just to play with them or what have you. But does it work in this case? You know, I don't know. And I was just because he starts off a lot of issues saying, you know, for this story, yeah, I'm not supposed to do this, but, and then he goes on and starts telling the story. You know,
it's a terrible narrator in that sense.
So
he even as
so he's playing with narrative the whole time throughout a lot of these issues, and is the last issue 20 the ultimate narrative slap, you know? I don't
possibly, because, like, just, you know, when we all first watched Pulp Fiction, that non-sequential narrative thing was, like, groundbreaking at the time, and it really worked, didn't it? Like, we all appreciated that it was not conventional, and we were all wowed by that, and then people copied that, so you have Memento came out, and then Christopher Nolan does it all the time. I just watched Oppenheimer last week, and it works. But like you just said, this is the ultimate. Like, I'm gonna fuck you all up with this last issue here, and hope that it works.
There's a long history of creators messing up endings. Some of the greatest creators of that they've ever had mess up endings by trying to be too meta, in a lot of sense, and being too much. Like, we've a TV series here, Line of Duty. The last episode of Line of Duty, he went very meta on it, like completely meta on it, like trying to make this big point about society. But it wasn't in keeping with the rest of the story that he told for six series. You know, it's like, right, okay, I see what you're doing. It's sort of clever, but it's totally inconsistent with what you're doing. And I think in this case, it doesn't work. Well, the one thing that we'll say, and what I've taken to be the actual ending rather than being shot, is the bit where the detective says to him, "What makes you different from any other kid that shot up a high school?" And that, to me, is the end of the series, because he gets very defensive, but surely, but ultimately, at the heart of it, this vigilantism. She says confronts him with a very face to face, and then shit starts to go down, and it kind of dissuades from that. The action comes out, and he gets his kind of shootout ending, the Butch Cassidy and Sundance kind of ending in some ways. But to me, that was kind of the point made in the story, which I do like that one, because I think it became very hard to sympathise with this revisionist history and all of that kind of stuff for me. And it just kind of made this nicer end in the last issue that much more of a bitter pill to swallow, because he got the answer out in his own terms, if you know what I mean, or talk it out in his own terms.
And there was a lot of great lines in here in the series, and a lot of great points like that. And then it becomes perplexing when you're kind of wondering, like, help me out with the ending here. What are we trying to do, you know? And I just noticed something else about the we're bringing up the purpose of the demon, and I think it was somewhere in the middle of the story with it where she's investigating him and went to his mother's and stuff like that. The detective, and in that case, the demon kind of served as a clue, because she saw the demon artwork in the attic and stuff like that, and because he had spouted that stuff off to other people, so it kind of served as a story clue for her to go to and find Dylan at the asylum. So is it that, that demon manifested in his dialogue, basically, to get him in touch with her as a story vehicle, kind of.
Yeah. And also, do we find believable that the detective will go all the way? Because once case closed, once they've got, even if it's the wrong suspect, but they got case closed. And they go and visit the apartment of these the copycat vigilante.
Yeah.
And
well,
just because she doesn't see the typewriter, that just sets her off onto. It's like, is that enough? Is that?
It's one of my favourite things, actually, in crime stories, is where, like, not that it happens, but there's a good reason, and the reason for her seems to be, but what has this guy got to do with the first location? Like, absolutely nothing. And that would eat away at a good detective. That is the bit, because they would look at the genesis of the crimes and the start, not what it evolved into, where they were taking out cops and all the rest of it. They look at the first couple of crimes before it starts spiraling and go, right, is that this person, or is it not? And I think I liked that bit, that it was written like a proper detective novel. Like, obviously Brubaker and Matt Phillips have done quite a lot of these, so it's very much informed. They actually use proper deductive reasoning in order to do that, rather than just, there's something eating me inside, that a lot of TV series and stuff do. It just doesn't feel right. Using the fact that the people who are watching it know it's not right, as a narrative device, but in this case, actually going, it doesn't feel right, because what has it got to do? And everybody else is telling her, let it go, and she's like, I can. But like I'm sure a lot of detectives have cold cases and things where they kind of look at and go, can't let this one go.
So victim.
Reminded me of another series we've watched recently, Chris. When,
exactly right. Yeah. People who are good at their jobs, and it is very TV movie detective kind of reasoning for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the whole victim, weapon, motive, and it seems that the police cares very little about the motive, and all you need is just that one person to really, like you say, Chris. Like, it doesn't. Where's the motive? If you don't have the motive, you haven't got the whole case.
Yeah, and as a collective.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there's a collective sigh of relief publicly when this guy is shot down in the streets, and there's a lot of pressure to say, yeah, we got him, and that's a big trope in detective stories as well,
Yeah, I was going to say that they could have went down a whole rabbit hole about society being fascinated by statistical outcomes rather than actually justice or things like that. You think of any walk of life, like education is now ruled by statistical outcomes. Crime. It's better to close the case unsatisfactory, but at least it's closed because the statistics will say that things are going well, so the politicians can turn around and say, look how things are improving in the world, because that's what statistics say, rather than the actual, catching the right people, doing all that kind of stuff. So they didn't go down that, but there definitely is that kind of idea just floated in the background there, which again is quite nice, because you respect your reader enough to kind of go, yeah, okay, I've seen that, and I know what they're talking about there.
Yeah. It seems, and the mental hospital he's in, all that seemed very, I don't know. Is that enough to lock someone up? I don't know. I mean, you see that I don't know. We see it all the time. I mean, is it? I guess because of his ramblings, it was enough. But to have him committed and to have him heavily medicated, but we know that he's doing these things. But to everyone else, does everyone else really think he's that bad? I mean, I don't know.
You don't need to kill people to be committed. Like, like I know someone. Like, I had a school friend that ended up, he would be periodically committed, and as far as I'm aware, he wasn't killing anyone, but he just there were times when either he was off meds or just things tipped him over, and he would periodically get sectioned for a period of time until he got better, and then he would come out again. And he was fairly aware of his condition, but he was stuck in that cycle.
Yeah, I think if you have a history of violent behavior and a history of medication to treat that violent behavior, then you are probably more likely to end up in a institution like that in order to treat that kind of thing.
I'll watch out for you, Steve. If anybody ever tries to put you out, go on, hold on a second. Can we just step back here a second and see whether there was any really just cause for this?
No. You might not want to put yourself out there like that, Chris.
I'm just going to ask the question. I might be the person that signed you in at the end of the day.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody says, actually, here's all this stuff. Yeah.
Let's go down the list. You already said about The Expanse? No.
5 books, really?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lock his ass up. Yeah.
He's crazy.
What do you mean he doesn't like Holden? Lock him up.
Oh no, I'm with you then. There we go.
I don't know. It seemed the last volume seemed very convenient.
Yeah,
I guess it seemed very. I don't know.
Similarly, is there enough reason to kill Perry, the orderly? That seemed pretty thin.
I think he extrapolates from what he's seen, and therefore in his mind it makes perfect sense, because what he's seeing is just indicative of what he's been up to for a long time.
but it's almost like he goes looking for the crime to fit what's in his head. It's like he needs somebody to be bad within that environment so that he can then act
Although
out.
it doesn't seem like he was wrong there.
No, like, yes, but also, like,
Yeah.
it was very thin. At least initially, it was very thin.
He did question himself one time. Like, it's like, and he asked himself, "Am I taking this too far with this guy? Am I imagining that? You know?" But
That's right.
But he does the whole, like the first time he sees the orderly groping the patient, like he does the whole explanation there, isn't it? Oh, if he's doing it in public, it's because he's so comfortable. He's done it so many, you know, like he's made a decision there and then. He doesn't need any further proof, even though he looks for it though.
Yeah.
Am I in the wrong room? Where's the bathroom?
And the scene at the end where the Russians come in to try and kill him, and he gets the gun, and the detective's like, I should probably hold on to that. Oh no, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Oh, okay, go ahead, Mr. Serial killer. Lead the way. I don't know. It seemed very kind of silly. I don't
To be
know.
honest,
I know she hasn't.
no, if you
Go
were in that
ahead.
situation, would you take the gun or would you give him the gun?
Okay, yeah, you gotta be there, but yeah. Okay,
I wouldn't
touche.
even know how to
Yeah,
hold that, mate. Like, I've
Yeah, but she's done hundreds of hours of weapons training. Like, she's not a complete novice. Like, she hasn't shot people in real life, but I'd say once you've been through that amount of weapons training, you'd be alright.
well, just like any
a trained
good video
professional.
game, you know they're gonna find another
Yeah.
gun eventually. So, and they did. So.
That's right. And you got to pick up your ammo off all the dead bodies and stuff, and then your health packs and your
Another
your
gun will
green
drop.
herbs.
Yeah, you're right.
Upgrade. And a workbench.
Yeah.
Oh god. I think one of the things that makes the end sort of a lot not as satisfying to me is the fact that Kira disappears as a character as well. Pretty much for the last 5. She's there holding his hand. Pretty much is the only thing that she does. Her influence is gone, and that's probably a conscious decision. But again, for a series that has so few characters in it, to kind of just boil it down to one at the end. I don't know what it is about him, but it just kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't tie it all together quite as nicely as I would have liked to have done.
So, sorry, I just wanted to bring a step back. Sorry, Chris. But isn't it also a bit convenient that he's so clever about taking out the Russians in the hospital? He thinks about how to tackle them, where to get them to, double up for the last one. But he doesn't think that there could be more outside, so they just walk out and then conveniently gets shot.
But again, it's all revisionist. It's all revisionist. He's already dead telling you the story, so this idea of, I obviously knew it was the Russians because they were walking instead of running. That had to be that, rather than that. So he's building himself up all the time until the point where he doesn't build himself up anymore. Because I think he just says, "Oh, obviously I should have known." But yeah, he's just a very, very unreliable narrator.
You're right.
For the story.
Because he says, like, his narration is saying that killing somebody really affected Lily Sharp, and he says,
"Yeah,
you're not fine, you're in shock," and she says, "I'll be fine." Is he just seeing that in his mind he thinks that it's affecting her, but was it really? Is she actually fine? So yeah, you're right. The narration cannot be trusted, really.
yeah." He's a narcissist. He thinks he's the hero in the story. So regardless of whether she's fine or not, in his head he's like, "No, I'm saving her. I'm a good person."
Right.
He still believes.
Yeah.
He's a good person at the end of this.
Good point. So do you think he takes a shot to protect her, or he just gets shot and then he post fact rationalizes that he's saving her life?
That could be up for interpretation, maybe.
He got shot. He's a dumbass.
Yeah,
I'm not a big Dylan fan. You might have got this.
I think
I
it's
know
just
we're
by,
supposed to sympathise with him. Yeah, but
I think it's just by chance. I don't really see him like jumping. He just happened to be there. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what I said. So he just gets shot,
Yeah.
but then post-event portrays himself as a. Yeah, I don't know.
again,
And
revisionist.
then, so
Yeah.
Chris, you were talking before about the ending. Like, it looks like endings are probably the most difficult thing to do in any storytelling medium, where it's movies or graphic novels, whatever. Like finishing a story
Yeah.
in a way that is satisfying to the reader. No, it's subjective, but in a manner that is consistent to the story seems difficult. Very difficult, actually.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
impossible, I would say. If you have like take the collective knowledge and wealth of stories that we've read, seen, experienced, played a part in, and then life experiences, it is very difficult to find something that feels fresh and original within that. Like that's so difficult. Which is why people go meta with it and kind of do that in a lot of these things. And 9 times out of 10, it completely falls in its ass because people are like, "What happened here? This is not that clever." Very rarely does a meta end and pull off, and even then, it's controversial. Like The Sopranos is a meta ending that sort of
No,
is liked.
no, no. I don't think The Sopranos is meta. It's just I did not understand it at the time. Sorry, but once I watched the videos explaining it, it does all make sense.
Yeah.
But that was one that I was like, like what is this? But I think The Sopranos made perfect sense. Sorry, we were just talking about something else now, but
No, but again, it wasn't like the end of that story wasn't in what happened in the rest of the series. If you want me to say, like, he didn't, I'm not going to talk about the end of The Sopranos in case anybody hasn't seen it, but you know what I mean. It was an alternative ending that a lot of people would have predicted. Let's put it that way, and did something a bit novel and interesting with the ending rather than kind of play out in one of those ways that it could have.
You're right, but it was foreshadowed.
Yeah.
So the seeds were planted there, and there were conversations between characters that sort of hinted at what might be the ending, even though, again, like I was talking before about Pulp Fiction, is something new that no one had ever done before. But I think it was consistent with the series. Whereas I think we're kind of in agreement that the ending of this novel is not consistent, maybe. Or maybe it is consistent because it's just playing with narrative conventions all the time.
With the unreliable narrator all the time, which is probably one of the most consistent things about the entire series in some ways, is the fact that he constantly goes, "Oh, by the way, we're not here yet. Let me take you back a little bit," or let me fill in your gaps.
Yeah, and he's constantly saying, "I shouldn't be telling this like this, but I am."
Yeah.
So then, is there another case of just an unconventional ending that is actually not? There's nothing actually wrong with it.
Just didn't like it, that's all.
Other than we never seen it before.
I'm not even sure if I dislike it so much as it felt unnecessary. If I understood what they were trying to achieve from it, then I would maybe. I can't even see a reason for doing it. And like I say, if I had been banned these issue by issue and spent another £3.30 on that last issue for that to be the thing, I would honestly be livid. I might have burned the comic book shop down. In a vigilante style kind of attack, that would be a better ending.
Now that would be
the readers.
That would be apropos.
A totally understandable reaction and totally measured in proportion to the ending of the series. Yes, Chris.
But a very white male middle class ending.
Let's not go there.
Should I get a lighter, Chris?
No, it's the shop. It's not, the comic's fine. The shop, you're only hurting yourself then.
Yeah.
And before you have me committed, that was a joke.
Yeah.
Ain't that excuse now for every inappropriate comment?
Yeah.
For phew, got away with it.
So do we think Kira will take up the mantle? Will she become the next? It seems like she's the next vigilante, but will she meet the same fate that Dylan did, or? Will she be successful?
I don't think necessarily a vigilante, but I think she'll definitely be tipped over the edge. I think that's what the last panel, to me, and the way I interpret the demon, I think that's what it implies. Plus, the blue hair is a red herring, although it's blue.
Blue hair.
Yeah, sorry.
Blue herring. I like it.
Well, there was a great line earlier back in issue number 16 where he says, when did you realize the bad guys had already won and that was just the way of the world? And he's talking about his childhood. And that kind of echoes that last line that in the final issue here. You know, it kind of relates to that. Like, somebody should do something. Someone really should, like, make it better. And so he's been on that theme throughout the whole run. But so he, you know, it's like the writing's good, you know, and it's interesting, and it gets you involved in the story, you know, despite our questioning of some of the story choices. So it's I don't know, would you recommend this series to somebody else? That's the question, I guess.
To someone that was already into graphic novels, I don't think it's anyone's entry point.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's definitely not one of those. Your first graphic novel series should be.
Yeah.
And I think actually that might be a bit of a folly, because I think some people would recommend Phillips and Brubaker as a good starting point for people to start in graphic novels, but this would not be.
No, I wouldn't recommend this
would
one.
not be the great point.
I might recommend the Reckless books because they're a bit more.
Yeah, or
bite-sized.
Criminal's very good.
Criminal or something, yeah, something that some people can identify and see. I love the art in it. I think the art's spectacular in it. I think the colouring is the themes and the changing of the colouring as the seasons go is really, really great.
Yeah.
And I love a lot of the questions that it asks, and it reads obviously very well. And the panel, and I love the narrative choices of when the explanation with the two white panels down the side for the story, moving that forward. I think all that stuff's really great. It's an unsatisfying ending, but that doesn't make it a bad ending for me. It's just
awesome.
Yeah, I think if someone's familiar with, I would probably say start with Criminal if we're going this team. I haven't read Reckless yet, but I think it was good. It was still good. I think there's a lot to really like about the series. The end was a little bit questionable, I guess. Wasn't my favorite ending, but I think overall I enjoyed it.
The thing for me is that I think it lacks the wow factor. It's just not in league with any other big graphic novels or comic book series that, like, to me it ranks below anything I could mention from Vertigo, for instance. Like, if I wanted to recommend someone a comic book series, I would pick anything from Vertigo in the 90s or the noughties over this. It's just, I don't want to give it a ranking. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not great.
I think it fluffs its message, because I think we are all sitting here going, I'm not entirely sure what it was really about or what it was trying to say, because it does that kind of, the ending's this, but the ending's also this, also the ending's this. So I think if it had been clear what it's trying to say, I might have felt better about it, and I think that's why I feel like I'm a bit just unsatisfied.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately it's a comic, so you can just stare at the beautiful artwork
That is true.
and be satisfied there.
Although again, I like Phillips's art, but I don't think there's anything overly creative with the page designs, or I don't think there's very many splash pages or any like amazing works there. Like, I do remember other comics where I'll be reading them and be totally blown away by the page compositions. Like, for for instance, with the Swamp Thing, I don't think I've ever seen things like that before, or bits of the Sandman. But here it seems fairly conventional. You got your panels, and that's about it, really.
Yeah, just I think just the dad's artwork is the only thing that really stands out, I guess, because it's so different than the rest of the artwork. But
Steve likes the naked bodies. There you go.
yeah.
But I agree. It's the stuff that feels artistic, if you know what I mean, or feels like it's on another level from what is pretty realistic kind of drawn. You know.
Yeah.
A strong human representation. You know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's an expert at drawing your eye from panel to panel, and in order to follow along, he really he hits all the buttons as far as I know. They're just basic panel layouts, but he's really knows how to make you follow and just keep flowing along with the story, and that takes a certain amount of draftsmanship,
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, anything else you guys can think of?
I suppose my only question is, what's the book really about? Is it about mental health? Is it a comment on society? A bit of both? Well, what did you guys think?
I would say a lot of societal commentary, and that how society treats mental health is also a part of that.
The medication. To me, it is what makes him different from any kid that shot up a high school. For all of the stories and all the justification, all the rewriting and the narrative that he puts about it, he murdered a whole load of people. Who, and the only one he feels sorry about is Rex. He was the dodgy drug dealer, like
because he got his drugs from
him.
Yeah,
but they weren't even the right drugs. They weren't even the drugs he ordered.
He's a bad drug dealer.
He's a bad drug. He's a bad drug dealer in the sense that he wasn't even doing that job well.
I think it's more about mental health and depression, and I think it's a lot of that, and how the world can be overwhelming when if you're suffering like that. So, and just like you said, how we handle those kind of conditions and kind of just like medicate them and put them away and up their medication and just hope for the best.
Yep, that was an interesting point where he changed. He says, "Well, change your medication," but he just over medicated him then to the point that he became numb. And nearly reset him. Reset his mental chemical imbalance. To the point that he was just doped up.
Yeah.
I don't know, but don't they say that depression is a chemical imbalance? I think traditionally we've always tried to find a personal experience reason for the depression, but it could just be, if it's just a chemical imbalance, it's just a random event and you're just unlucky, and then you try to justify it by looking around you when it's just coming from within. So how else would you treat something that is chemically induced?
Yeah. Fair point.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, we don't know what it's about. At least it raises these questions.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Good discussions, though, I thought.
Yeah.
Yep.
But again, having the 6 issues to talk about felt way more meatier and way more kind of involved to talk about than just the 4. Like, I think it's amazing how much extra you get out of that.
A lot more meat.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks, guys. It was fun, as always. We'll have to find out what we're going to be reading next. But in the meantime, Chris, can you tell us where people can find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Chris Mohan, Mohan, or you can find me in the page tune forums, talking about books and movies and comics and graphic novels and music and whatever else there is to talk about.
And Jose.
Yeah, you can also find me on YouTube at Jose's Amazing Worlds, and also in the page chewing forums.
Nice. And Jarrod.
And you can find me on YouTube at The Fantasy Thinker. And I'm also on the page chewing forums quite a bit. It's a great place.
Cool. And on the blog too. Some great articles.
The page chewing blog. Yep. Creative Crossroads. Yep.
Good stuff. Well, cool. So until next time, thanks everyone, and we'll see everyone soon.